A Zoom closing is something I've never done before. So we're going to see how this works. We have Rebecca here, who is our communications specialist for the WCAC. And she's going to pull up the online gallery, and we're going to just kind of walk through there and look at different work if you haven't had a chance to really go through there. But also the artists that are here, which is most of you guys. If y'all want to say anything about your work, we would love to hear more about it. But no pressure if you don't. We're kind of looking at this as being just like a casual share and meet everybody, and kind of, if we could imagine we were in a gallery space walking around looking at work, just chatting. It's not the same for sure, but it's great to see everybody. Just introduce myself. I'm Andy Steele, and I'm the president of the Women's Caucus for the Arts Carolinas. And this show has taken a lot of, it went through a lot of changes before we got it to where we needed it to be. But it was really intended to be kind of like our big opening thing for the WCA-Carolinas, which is a new chapter. And it is our thing right now. Like, this is the one thing that we were able to really get accomplished, aside from, of course, getting established. But so we really do appreciate that you guys stayed with us and worked through all the different, it's going to be a show, it's not going to be a show, it's going to be at a different time, no it's not, now it's going to be a virtual show. I think we, considering how the world is, this was a great way for us to end up.
So who set this? I never did have the chance to ask who set up the virtual show.
BG did.
Nice.
The UNCW has we set it up for our senior exhibit last spring. And so we have access to it. But Billy Gray, and I'm sure all the artists on here recognize Billy Gray's name, if not Billy Gray herself, because you've had a lot of communications with her. But she was a fantastic help for this show, with communicating with everybody and also for setting up the show.
So I want to congratulate the team for getting this done. I understand, the dynamics of the times that we're in, and how, I don't like to use the word challenging, but how much of an opportunity it takes to overcome and kicking off anything these days, especially even, getting up out of bed and making art and doing stuff. So congratulations to the entire team and all the artists that are here. This piece is Consequences, and she's made with all silk and wool fibers. She's hand agitated in a traditional felting method. There's a silk foundation, and then the strands are laid almost like clumps of hair strands. Really, really time consuming, and hand agitated with soap and water. She is the sister wrap to Choices, and both are award-winning healing wraps. They do go in huge shadow box frames when they're on exhibit. And we got whimsical too. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. So they go in huge shadow box frames, but they are wearable healing art, full of energetic modalities for healing.
Love that.
Thank you.
Do you know what's really interesting is these are three-dimensional pieces that would have been shown on a pedestal or somehow in the gallery, and we put them on the wall as art.
Yeah.
When you look at this whole show. So it's really nice to hear you talk about the process, Felicia, and it's belting and giving more description and texture to it.
Yes.
Than we actually see.
And when I put them in the galleries and exhibit places, I use a huge shadow box primarily to protect the fibers, because one day they'll belong to someone, and it's an energetic transfer as well. So I try to protect them, but I'm usually wearing some or carrying some for people that want to sample.
This is Laura Morrison. If you just go just to the right of this, then you can see the piece that Gail Smuda, who is also here, and I created. It's hard to see. Again, this is supposed to be an installation on a clothesline. And I thought we improved this so it looked a little clearer.
Is this another detail?
So this is the back of it. So they were 7 tea towels, days of the week, washing, cleaning, laundry. And then on the back though, there you go. You can see a little better. That's red work on just a tea towel, 7 days of the week. But this is about women's work. And so on the back of it, and if you go to the next one, it's just a rat's nest of threads. And we were talking about how, things look all clean and tidy on the front, but it's just women's work and trying to get things done and dealing with everything is just, really hard. So our concept was to have it stringing through the gallery, and you could walk, like have it along a corner so you could walk on both sides and take a look. We also conceived of like flipping it so that, it was like you'd see the front and the back and the front and the back as it went on the clothesline. That was another idea we had for installing it. So you were right about talking about it's interesting showing 3-dimensional pieces as a 2-dimensional piece on a wall. It's hard to get the full effect. Now, Gail, would you like to say some more about it?
No, not really. You're doing really well, Laura.
Thank you, Gail. Come on, pitch in.
Well, it's interesting because, again, the two of us worked on this, and it's pretty seamless. You can't really tell who did what. And we do a lot of collaborative work, and we found that usually works out okay to hand it off, and you do this and I'll do that, and it ends up being cohesive in the end.
Yeah, Gail and I, we work under the name Loosely Knit Alliance, and we've done, I don't know, 10, 12, 14 pieces over the years together.
At least.
I love this work. It's really interesting. I love the idea of collaboration with other artists.
Yeah, Gail, how long have we been collaborating? Like,
I was trying to figure that out the other day. It's at least, we had to show up in Ren over a decade ago.
All right, so it's probably been like 12, 14 years maybe.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. We became, good friends and started working together. So.
And Laura's the Grand Poobah.
I'm the Grand Poobah. I'm the president of National, and want to congratulate the Carolinas chapter and Andy on getting this rolling. I think it's fantastic.
I just want to say about this piece, these towels, these remind me when I was a kid, I did these things like this with my grandmother. Like we stitched similar tea towels like this that had these different, they were very similar. And it just took me back there for a second of sitting there and doing that. But then also realizing that everything that was on those dish towels were things like, you should wash the dishes and you should do this and you should do that. And it was, that's how I was brought up, right? Like it's really interesting. And I love the back of these. I love that really kind of contradiction of what's happening on the front and the back. I would love to see it as you guys really wanted to install it.
I have a question. When you collaborate, how do you like just in terms of style and design, like everything's very uniform. So is it that one person does the design, the other person executes the the labor of the activity, or how do you delegate to one another?
In this case, we just divided it up and each of us did half of it. And then not with an idea of you have to do the front and you have to do the back, but that we worked on both front and back, so that you can't really tell who did what. And the reason it works so well is, oddly enough, she's 20 years younger than me, but we have the same aesthetic. So whenever we see something, we totally agree on the aesthetic of it. And from that, we can create together, because we don't have an ego that gets in the way. It's the goal.
Yeah, well, I wanna briefly, make an introduction for my mother. I'm Judith, and I help my mother, Hedith Perdomo, with the online and any digital work that is needed. My mom is originally from Colombia. She grew up in Venezuela. And she's been an artist for the past 18 years. She moved to the US in 2014, and she's been here since then. And I don't know if there's any Spanish speakers in this room tonight. I will be the translator and talk a little bit about, this particular piece.
Is she active in the Atlanta chapter of the WCA?
Yeah, so she is a member of WCA, Georgia, DC, and New York City. Yeah, it's been really wonderful, and I really, encourage my mom to, even though she doesn't speak the language, just a little bit, but to kind of join these meetings and look at some other women's artwork and just kind of do something that she wouldn't usually do, because she's spending a lot of time creating her own art. She can spend 10 to 12 hours a day. So yeah, she loves it. I can tell you guys a little bit about this piece on behalf of my mother.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. So this hard-working woman communicated a wealth of emotion and history to me in her expression. Her eyes tell a story of sadness and toil, the expression of fatigue after a day of hard work and an uncertain future, of a time when guerrilla soldiers and kidnappings were a common problem in rural areas of Colombia and Venezuela. The subject of cocoa plantations, harvesting and processing, in particular by women laborers, caught my attention. She represents a woman on the margins of society who, through her labor, perseverance, and disciplines, make it possible for her family to get by, and that deserves recognition for her work and her contribution. So she created this piece in 2012, and this is a woman from the 1960s. And my mom's work is oil and canvas as the medium that she used. And she hasn't done a lot of portraits, but the ones that she's done are truly remarkable.
Yeah, the intensity of the expression is just really, you can just feel the emotions of the subject. It's very powerful.
I'll convey that to my mother.
Is this someone she knows, or this is
this is not a person that she knows, but a person that she remembers back in the 1960s.
Wow.
When she lived in a farm in Venezuela, and she would see some of these women walking with baskets of cocoa pods over their heads. So part of it is memories.
Yes. They say you never forget a face. You may not remember the name, but you never forget a face.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful.
She creates a lot of like landscapes, American landscapes. And if you see her work on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see that a lot of it is just a lot of landscapes.
Oh, thank you for having me. I was really excited to get into this show in Wilmington. And let's see, this is a piece, well, I guess it was inspired by actually Picasso and Matisse, both made pictures about Bathsheba. So I was doing some research, and I live on the edge of Indian reservations, the Navajo and the Hopi. So I have a lot of tribal influences, plus my husband is Jewish, so that's another tribal influence. Plus, when I made this piece in 2018, the mayor of my city, Flagstaff, is a very strong and powerful Black woman. And I'm also from Omaha. So I've had a lot of African-American friends, and I don't know. I don't know how really this happened in my studio. Sometimes things just happen, and I cut pieces out of the New York Times. So this is what happened with this piece, and it was actually accepted into the Arizona Biennial back in 2018, which was kind of a big deal. So so I was happy to have this piece shown again in Wilmington. I like porcelain dolls. And I did some research about Bathsheba in the Hebrew Bible, who was the first wife of Hittite and later the wife of King David. And I guess we all know that story with Passover coming up tomorrow night. After I did some research, I found that the ethnicity of Bathsheba may have been from an African country.
So yeah, I've heard that.
That's what happened here.
Yeah.
And I just usually use things that are in my studio. The leopard print came up, and the rice paper, and the fans, and I like the ghosts. So that's about all I have to say.
You have another piece as well, right, Rhonda?
I did, yes. It's kind of a time travel piece, of course, with the this is a picture of Sojourner of Truth, the abolitionist, and women's rights activist. And then a couple years ago in, let's see, Salt Lake City, Utah, Willie Cole, who's a pretty famous African-American artist.
I love his work.
Curated a show. And so I was kind of having fun with it. And I made several pieces with Willie Cole showing up because I kind of am interested in time travel for some reason, that he could show up with Sojourner Truth, who was speaking clear back in 1826. So this is just kind of a fun piece, and Willie Cole rejected it from the show in Salt Lake City. Been in a couple other shows, and then I got into the show in Wilmington, so I was really pleased, and I'd like to thank Beverly McIver for picking it.
Is it all collage?
It is. It's all collage, and I was kind of goofing, obviously, on Willie Cole and the ironing thing.
Oh, I love his work. I love
his work. So you know, sometimes I'm just kind of kooky and just have fun, and I'm playing with doilies and, you know, just whatever I find. And I think at this time I was working with some old prints that I found at an antique store here along Route 66. So I live in a very historical area, and my mother, who recently died of COVID, used to take me to a lot of antique stores.
Yeah.
So of course I love doilies and crochet and old posters. So I have quite a stash of that in my studio. So it often ends up getting cut up and made into collages. So I really haven't had a lot of money to do things, to make art. So I make art out of kind of junked objects.
Well, I have always been interested in women's issues from the time that I graduated from college. most of my work is about social issues, but women's issues has been the first and the one that's carried through throughout all my years of painting. I created this Battered and Bruised at the end of 2020, probably around in September. But I had that sculptural hand. I had made that sculptural hand about 7 years ago. And I didn't do anything with it because of fear, actually. You know, North Carolina is a little tepid about showing any work about domestic violence and abuse. And so I just kept it on hand, and I decided during isolation, after reading how much domestic violence was going on because of isolation, that I really needed to do this piece. And so anyway, my work is very stylized. Before I went to college, well, from the age of 9 years old, my mom taught me how to sew. And I loved fabric, and I loved creating my own patterns, and I loved putting shapes and everything together. And then I started doing quilting too at a young age. So a lot of my non-representational pieces have a lot of patterns in it. And you can see patterns in this also. I love circles. Circles are kind of like in my soul. And I think a circle makes its way in every single painting that I do, whether it's non-representational or representational. But as soon as I created this, I got a lot of feedback on it. I was really surprised how many people came back. It's actually in 2 shows right now. And so I really felt like I needed to put that voice out there for the women that are being domestically abused at this point and don't have any place to go or any, it needs to be a conversation. And we need to have more resources available for these women. So anyway, that's the story of this painting.
Hi, Joyce.
Yes.
It's Felicia. And I contacted you when I first saw this.
Yes, I know.
Yes, and I said, wow, what a capture. I mean, what a capture. And of course, it greatly resonates with me and in my history, my life history of abuse. And I shared that with you. And yeah. I thanked you for capturing a portrayal of like, wow, it's real, it happens, and we've got to do something about it. So I'm very honored to be here with you and to see it hanging on the wall. Thank you for making it. Thank you for creating it and bringing it to life and sharing it with us. Well,
I know my mother had a history of domestic abuse, and I had some earlier in my marriage. So this subject really resonates with me, and I try to keep close tabs on what's going on in the world as far as this subject. But I also love to do paintings that give encouragement and just inspire women to keep going, and I just think it's important to always, in fact, when I graduated from college, my first painting took first place in a 13-county exhibit in Cayuga Museum, Science and Art Museum. And it was about women in art, where are they? So I've always kind of been a rebel for women as far as, even as artists. And it's funny, but it's not funny, but we're still facing the same thing today. We're only in 25% of the women artists are in museums or get into galleries when compared to men. And I think as women, I don't know if I'm ever going to see this change before I go into another world. And it's just so discouraging after so many years, because I graduated in 1985 and we're still fighting this battle. I find it very discouraging sometimes, but I still keep my voice out there. I mean, I still, keep fighting for women and their issues.
I don't know where to dig in. This piece is part of a series that it's kind of ongoing with me. It's acrylic on canvas, and I've explored the topic of invasive species. I like to take the bend of natural history and playing with, I have a very poppy graphic quality to my work, but this piece in particular kind of addresses the idea of sparrows and how they are, they're invasive. But if you look back at the history of them, you can take it back to Central Park and the whole, you can dig into it. But on a more immediate level, they're invasive and they kick other birds out of their nest, the eggs out of the nest, and they nest, and then they take over the nest physically. So they're not like cowbirds where they have them raising their young, but they have a habit of doing it to sparrows. And so this is just a correlation between the sparrows and the swallows, I'm sorry. But on a more immediate level, in terms of women, I mean, it's that fight for protection of your young. But if you notice, there's the eggs themselves are little grenades, and so it's a commentary on how those sparrows are just reproducing and creating more and more of themselves to the detriment of the other birds. Like I said, it's part of a series. I've done many of these where I've kind of played with juxtapositions of invasive species. I've also done mutation series where I'll play with genetic mutations. And so I like to look at biology and reproduction and play with it in terms of my artwork.
What medium is this? Is this oil?
Acrylic, and I feel like I think the image quality in terms of the screen is a little off, but it's real. I glaze a lot, so the birds themselves are really ephemeral and have a lot of that. I try to get the quality of the thinness of their skin, the little birds in terms of the nest, and so some areas are more loose with the paint, and other areas I get more into glazing and kind of try to capture the nuance of the subject.
Mm-hmm. That's lovely. I love it. I love it. And I was thinking, are those grenades in there? And I'm glad you said, it looks like it. Yes.
Yeah, they're all kind of tongue in cheek. I like to play with juxtapositions, and just make it poppy.
Yeah, my husband Jason, who is not the artist in the family, pointed out to me that they were grenades. I didn't notice. He's the one that pointed it out, but I was very appreciative. It definitely changes the meaning.
Yeah, they're subtle, and then in your face at the same time.
Great.
Nice, Abby.
Thank
I
you.
like the quality where, from a distance, it looks quite, it's quite beautiful. And then it pulls you in, and as you learn more and more, and especially about the grenades in the nest, it's kind of a surprise as you really start noticing. And I really like that. I like the way you've done that.
Thank you. That's definitely a goal that I have. I've always kind of liked the idea of attraction, repulsion, and
Right.
melancholy, and playing around with things that are a little icky and uncomfortable.
Yep, I like that too. So
Thanks.
very nice.
I'm Theresa Brown. I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm an acrylic artist, contemporary. And this piece is called Broken. And I created this piece. I was just thinking about a lot of different emotions. Life is full of challenges and hard times. So I sort of just let myself go, and it has a lot of layers on it as well. Underneath the black is actually blue. And I just created it and felt, I love to do, I'm a contemporary artist, and I just love to do simple designs.
I love how you shared that there's many layers, because that's life. You mentioned that there was, so much going on in life, and just you saying that it has many layers is so beautifully tied to life itself. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I love
It's
it.
it's
I
a
love
very
it too.
it's a very powerful piece. I think the black is like maybe the unknown or death. I don't know whether you're thinking about the void or, I mean, that's how I look at it. I don't know whether that was your intention.
I was just basically, I was just playing around with it one day, and I was just trying to, a lot of times I try to paint with feelings, if you can see the lines. And I just came up with it, and I said, this is it, and I'm gonna stop here. A lot of times I think about my work, because I do a lot of layering, and sometimes I wonder, should I stop here? But it was no question that I was finished with this piece. And going through pain and hardship, sometimes I paint a little differently.
Yes. It's beautiful. And I'm happy.
Thank you.
I'm happy to see that there is light included in the layers, because that's important to represent and to know that there's always light in no matter what layer we're at in life. So beautiful.
Yes, that's well said. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Do you paint it with a stick? Did you use a stick or the end of the paintbrush?
No, I paint this with a brush, very wide brush, and all different sizes of brushes.
It's really nice.
Thank you.
Is there another element besides paint of another medium, or is it all paint?
This one is all paint, but I do use charcoal and pencils and different things. But this particular piece is all paint, like a build up of paint that's continuously layered.
Yeah, so it's very reflective of the intent in that you mentioned layers, and then it takes on almost a three-dimensional look in some of the areas. It's very powerful, very powerful.
Is that oil paint or acrylic? Is that
acrylic.
Oil? It's acrylic.
Acrylic.
Oh, you're very skilled
Yeah.
with the acrylic, because it looks
Thank
like
you.
oil paint to me.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Well, thank you for being in it. I love this piece as well. I really wish I could see them all in real life. Another time.
So this is very interesting, because this is not like my work at all, except I'm very interested in materials, but I'm interested in the cycles of life and nature, the relationship between the two, the passing of time and history. And my work has all kinds of different elements, but with COVID, it was a matter of, I'm just going to explore materials, and I'm just going to, I mean, it's some of my same interests, because I'm interested in edges, I'm interested in layering. It has cheesecloth, and I've used cheesecloth before in other ways. It has staining, it has tea, it has coffee. It has actually, my finger started bleeding, and so I use that as stain. So I'm interested in nature. So in that way, it's reflective of my work, but not of the whole, if you looked at my work for the last 5 years, this is not what it is. But I use that as an opportunity to sort of explore something else, because everything else was different, and I thought I would just do something different. Oh, let's see, that's the detail.
Is there stitching in there on your lace?
No, but I have done stitching, but I did that with a pen, with
nice.
little marker. But I have done in my work. I do a lot of stitching, but in this piece I didn't. And I'm very interested in relationships of where things end and begin, and that kind of thing. And I think of it almost as like topographical. I mean, looking down from airplanes and how things look. I mean, that's not like anything from an airplane, but parts of it could be.
I was going to say, it looks like a topographical map.
Well, that's, okay. With cheesecloth, but I am very interested in that. But and that came, I think that was more, I would say, subconscious.
Yeah, I was going to say it feels very topographical too, and like looking down from a plane. feels very familiar.
Well, it'd be nice, well, you're not in this chapter, but it would really be nice to have shown other work. But that's not what this is about. This is about this exhibition, because I think it's interesting to see, you know, everyone has sort of said this has been their work and this is just another part of it. And for me, this is very different than my work. So it's, you know, you're just looking at this one moment in time, basically. I did 3 or 4 other pieces like this, but it's, you know, it's not what I'm actually working on an installation for a Zoom on Tuesday. So, you know, I like that. I like installation.
Yes, this has been so enjoyable tonight, Andy. Thank you. This is a piece, and it's kind of a spin-off from, I've been working on growing up Catholic and my departure from the Catholic religion, walking a different path. But this is all about strength and power. And the series is called Beatrice. It's a Latin word meaning internal strength, something that comes from deep within. And Saint Barbara, in researching my namesake in the Catholic religion, is the patron saint of lightning. And I was trying to photograph lightning and having a real struggle with it. So I just kind of threw up my hands and said, all right, I'm leaving the studio for a couple of weeks. I'm just going to go do something else. So I was in the backyard weeding and just pulling plants. And all of a sudden I pull this root up and it looks like lightning. The duality was incredible from earth and sky. So then right away, it's like into the studio, get out the cameras and start working. So I have a whole series. There's a few pieces on my website. And then there's, I think, 3 pieces in the show.
So is it, it's a photograph?
It's a photograph, and the roots are actually only like this big. They're a little tiny. Oh, wow. But what power and strength a little root has. This is all done with a macro lens, and they are coming up a little fuzzy on the screens tonight through. Oh, I love it.
I love it. I really love it. It's lightning, but it's also like roots, and yeah, it's a very.
And this one actually has a lot of resemblance to the aortic artery.
Well, you know, so interesting. I'm using a heart in my installation. Mm-hmm. And actually, my husband he passed away. He was a pediatric cardiologist, and I have a little heart that, like, I guess he used it to show patients. And when I looked at it, I thought, you know, those are like arteries. So,
right.
Yeah.
So some of them resemble more lightning. Some of them you could tell they're really roots. Some of them actually took on a figurative presence, male and female. It was really interesting when I put this body of work together. I printed them for 2.5 by 4 feet.
Okay. Do you do your own printing?
Yes, I do.
Wow, you have a big printer.
Yes.
And is it on what kind of paper or canvas or what's material?
No, it's on a cotton fiber rag.
I love it. I think these are very powerful.
Thank you.
Barbara, did you print anything else, like cards or stationery or anything to go with this?
I have not.
I keep trying to get cards out.
Yeah, no, actually, I have some other pieces that I've done through COVID that I've made little accordion books, and you know, I do a lot of 3-dimensional. What I did do with these is I made art blocks. So I have them, Felicia. I don't know how well they're going to show up here. Here's lightning. They're done on a 2x4. So I sealed them onto wood, but they're an actual print. And then what I was doing was just taking pieces of some of my test prints.
That is so powerful.
And so they're 3-sided. Some of the pieces you could see where the roots come around to the 3rd side.
How did you seal that on wood?
I played with some varnishes. I also played with encaustic, a beeswax, but I ended up with a varnish. That was.
I would think that they're very saleable.
I did a lot of these for the gallery when they were showing my work. and I sold out of them.
Nice.
These are the ones I'm showing you are just a test.
But I do think I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to a close.
Yes,
though,
I
because
have
I
not
don't want
had
to keep
dinner.
people too long.
No.
But I appreciate so much everybody coming tonight and sharing about your work. It's fantastic. Like I said before, this was more than I had envisioned it would be, and it's great. And every time I get together with a group of WCA women, I'm just like, yeah, I got to go do something. Like I want to go make something.
Well, let me tell you,
Yes.
no, my hat's off to you and to Billy Gray. Thank you so much for your patience, your kindness, your really, Andy and Billy Gray, really, I have to really thank you from the bottom of my heart.
We
because
appreciate it.